First question I'm going to ask, and Maddie, I'm going to start with you because I know you'll have an answer to this. But how important was the internship and finding an internship in helping you to get a full-time job?
Internship 100% so important. I wish I was able to actually do more of them. So I interned at Channel 7 for all of summer of 2022, I believe. And you made so many connections, even while at Channel 7. I made connections at Channel 4 and 16 because a lot of times you'll notice if you're covering city or county government, everyone is there for those large meetings. So you really make those connections. You really learn how things are taught. I know sometimes you're like, oh, my professors might just be teaching this. Where am I ever going to apply it? And so in those internships, you really see where you apply it. But you also can figure out when you come back to school, maybe if you take it over summer, where are some shortfalls that you really need to pay attention to and hone in on. And so those internship opportunities, especially in broadcast journalism, get you that real feel as well as having those day turns. At UCA, of course, you're given with New Six about a week to turn a package, a week each, assignment versus out in the real world, you're turning those every single day. So your time, you have to get down really quick. You have to be a quick writer. You have to know your facts and details and information, know how to conduct those interviews. If you're shooting it by yourself without a photographer, you have to be well equipped and ready to handle any camera issue that there is, and go forth with that. So internships are so important. Do as many as possible because I wish that I had done more during my time at UCA.
Thank you. And others have internship experiences?
I did three internships during my time at UCA, and it was so long ago that you did not get paid for them. You
They
got
still don't.
paid with experience, not actual dollars. And so I did an internship at Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church at the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce. And well, it was a long time ago, guys, but I swear I did three. And I employers, they understand that you're in school, but they want to see that extra effort. They want to see that you have taken what you've learned and applied it to an actual real job. And this could be, I know some of you may be working full time, plus going to school, plus taking care of a family. I get it. Life can life. But even if it's just volunteering for a nonprofit, for an event, maybe a one-time off where you can use your PR and communication skills, then that at least gives you something else to show in your portfolio when you are interviewing with potential employers.
Jamal, I want to start with you on this because I do know that you were involved in a lot of things when you were at UCA. But what was a course or an exercise or an activity on campus, RSO maybe for you, maybe SGA that really kind of helped you in what you're doing now?
My gosh, there's so many routes I could take with this. I think the most obvious one is student government. Just it really taught me the importance of like public service and learning how to work with people. There were a lot of issues that happened during my time at SGA that impacted students or impacted faculty, and being a part of those conversations, being forced to listen to other perspectives and also just listening to the students. I think that that was like that was really fundamental for me, just learning how to move on professionally and hear other perspectives and knowing how to take thoughts and kind of sit with them for a little bit. But as far as classes that I think stand out, when you said that, the immediate one that came to mind was interpersonal communication. And I think over, I took it for, it was definitely a semester class. I don't think it was a summer class. Interpersonal communication, because I think it teaches you how to be really intentional with people. Um, I've learned in my career that a lot of people don't appreciate an effective or intentional communicator until they realize they don't have one there. And so that's just been a really big portion of work that I've done.
And Jillian, what about you? What experience or course or activity, whatever, at UCA you feel like has helped you?
Yeah, again, I feel like there are so many things to choose from. But one thing I think, especially in the RID program, that was so helpful to me was, like Heidi had mentioned earlier, life happens and it's hard to always fit in another internship on top of full-time class load and all of, your job that you have. And so something that I really enjoyed built into the RID program was the service learning courses they offered. So I have internships that I can list that were courses that I took, where I worked with a nonprofit for a semester and wrote grants and started an email campaign. And a semester where I learned WordPress and helped build a web page for UCA. And so those are hard skills and different programs that I learned, and a lot of things that I learned to get my graduate assistantship that I have now, where I'm working with the Euler webpage and WordPress, and was able to say, hey, yeah, I have a semester of experience with this. And then in my other assistantship, I mean, I feel like everything kind of continued from my undergrad to my grad really well, because I worked in the Writing Center, the CWC, at UCA, and I'm now a graduate assistant helping out to train our new tutors at the Writing Center at Euler. So I think a lot of those things really translate if you want to go straight into the workforce. You have a lot of those hard skills that you've learned. And then if you want to continue your studies, those things are going to help you get assistantships and help you in your studies as you continue to use those skills.
How do you want to start with you on this next one? Because this is really the one question all the students want to ask is, how do you find a job?
Well, um, first, you just have to look. You know, you're old when you say back in the day, we used to look in the classifieds of the newspaper, and wait for that to come out every day, to see what was posted and mail in our resume. Now you guys have it way, way so much easier. Start thinking about the types of industries that you'd like to work for. Because what's great about a communications degree is the versatility. You can literally work in any industry. And so your toolkit evolves with technology, but it really is applicable across the board. You just have to learn whatever industry you go into. So do research on companies. Find out who's got good internal cultures. Ask friends who or people who work there, what their experience is. LinkedIn is a great way to find job postings. PRSA is another great resource for career options. And so it really is just taking the time to figure out where would you like to start? Is it ad agency? Again, it really is endless. So I just think it's, where do you want corporate? Do you want nonprofit? Do you want agency? And go from there. And first jobs are kind of a crapshoot. So it may work out, and you may think, I never want to work for an ad agency ever again. But you won't know until you try. So that would be my best advice.
Okay, Jamaal, you are at the Southern Poverty Law Center after your fellowship. What about you? What did it take to get that job?
I think you kind of have to be aggressive, right? Like you really have to put yourself out there. And, I think a lot of times I saw this article, and it was talking about how so many people are deterred from applying for jobs if they see one or two things that they're like, oh, I don't have experience in that. You should still apply. Be aggressive, do a cold email, take a shot. Like you're either going to get told no or you're going to tell yourself no. And that's the worst that can happen. So you might as well take a shot and do it. Um, I was very intentional about what do I want to do. And if I saw something remotely kind of in that realm, I was like, you know what, I'll try it. I'll, apply for the job. So yeah, I think be aggressive. Don't be afraid of sending a cold email. In law school, it's kind of difficult to get into public interest work, especially advocacy work, because a lot of law school is geared towards, doing more corporate work or going into like prosecutorial work or working for the state or whatever. And I knew I wanted to work for a legislator, and I emailed all of them. I did like a BCC email to all the legislators I wanted to work with. I sent them a headshot and I sent my resume. No application, just sent it. And that was how I got my like first job in law school. And I stayed with that legislator throughout all of law school as like
I
a
gotta
part-time.
ask, how many of them responded to you? How many did you
Seven
send?
to eight, like
And
7 to 8 responded, and like 4 or 5 were like, yeah, you can come in and interview. But the first chief of staff that was like, yeah, we have a job for you. I was like, I'll take it.
and
But yeah, like
how many emails did you send?
I sent one email, but it was a BCC. So it
But
went to
how many
like
people did you send it to?
60-ish
Okay.
people, like 60 or so people. And some responded way after I had like sent the email, right? Like some got back to me way later.
Mhm.
But like I said, I stayed with that legislator throughout law school, and that got me so much experience in the policy space. Um, and just, I was able to, after law school, say, yeah, I have policy experience. And if I never sent those cold emails, I would have never had that job. And I think I would be in a very different position. I don't think I would be at SPLC right now.
Okay. Mattison, I want to ask you, so in your job, you spent your years here. You've been out now for a year or so. How would you say what you do in your job? Uh, how much of it are you using what you learned at UCA as opposed to what you learned since you've gotten out there and you're working full time? And you can throw your internship in there at some level as well.
Honestly, our classes in journalism are very set up in specific parts. So we have BJP 1, 2, and 3, which are production courses. We really focus on camera work, really focus on storytelling. But then we have our classes like media law, advanced journalism, advanced reporting, where we're working on specific things that deal with a portion of our job, right? So thanks to my education at UCA, I'm one of the only reporters at our station that can go to city government and understand what's going on. So that's a huge portion of what I do at the station is covering city and county government because it takes such a background knowledge in that to be able to understand the procedures that's going on. What is the difference between a procedure and an ordinance, and when they group them together in a vote and first read, second read, third read, right? There's so many different things. And so each class really did teach me different aspects. And then when you get to that internship, it's grouping all of that together and merging it into one instead of thinking separate brains, right? You got to put the brain all together, put all the pieces together of that puzzle. Then when you actually start out in the job, it's tough at first. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you just don't realize some of the things that you're going to encounter. And one of the biggest stories that I like to share is I was on the front of a mass shooting. I actually was doing a story not too far from Fordyce when the Mad Butcher was experiencing that mass shooting. And I was the first reporter on the scene, and I went straight to the hospital. And I saw the blood trail coming in, saw the nurses sobbing because one of the victims ended up being a nurse that worked at that hospital. And so there's some days where you go home and you have a lot of emotional, just like heaviness on you. But then other days you go to a pre-K prom and you get to watch, kids just have fun and dance for a nonprofit organization raising money. So you also have to balance not only as a journalism, whether that be paper or broadcast, balance the story that you're doing with your own emotions, but you also have to go through the motions and get to that deadline on that high stress, right? I've got to make show at 9 o'clock. And so it's all of those things that you learn post grad, but everything in undergrad, that's what you got to take and kind of piece it together, make that puzzle, make that pottery, and that helps you get through it. So every day that you get out of college and you're working that new job, you learn something new until you finally hit that like steady flow, right? Where you're comfortable, you know what you're doing. If you're on a new scene, you know what you got to do. You know, these are my steps and how to do it. If the camera busts, I've got another one in the car, right? And it's all of those things that mesh well and that you have to learn after post grad. But had I not had some of those experiences in undergrad, I wouldn't be where I am today. I was the first UCA student to be able to directly get hired into the Literock market. And I genuinely think it's because of my internships and the connections that I made, job shadowing, doing all of the things, building those connections, using LinkedIn, creating a portfolio, creating the reporter reel, creating that anchor reel, putting it together, and just sending it and seeing what stuck. But I was dead set. I was not going lower than Literock, and we made it. And so, but it's all through those connections again and internships.
Jillian, I wanted to ask you, you're in graduate school. So what does a student need to do to prepare for graduate school?
I would say I think it translated really well. And I think especially, so this is where I come out to all of you guys as a double major in RID and communication. So I think that type of workload where I was creating the deliverables that I mentioned in my RID program and also doing a lot more academic writing than I would have even done alone in RID. I think those two combined really help me now balance the assistantships that I have where I'm doing the practical work and then also the academic work where, I mean, I'd say if you are feeling ChatGPT for every assignment, you are not ready for graduate school and not really setting yourself up for that type of success or anywhere, to be honest. But I also have to use those for my job. So in certain ways. So I would say my knowledge of how to create AI agents that came from RID was really helpful to the social media writing that I do now, and the LinkedIn writing that I do now. But being able to also stand on my own when it comes to academic writing and the levels of reading that you have to do, was really important.